replica of the coffin in which Mr. Lincoln was entombed in. It comes from Batesville, Indiana, by the Batesville Casket Company. It is a replica, one of 5. Of those 5, the one on permanent display is at the Lincoln Library in Springfield, Illinois. The other 4, like this is included in, are loaned out and let for show to various museums and public places by mortuaries throughout the country. This casket is almost identical to the one that Mr. Lincoln is entombed in. The replica is 6'4", which was Mr. Lincoln's exact height. The casket in which Mr. Lincoln rests is 6'6". Other than that, there are just minor stylish differences. What makes this particular display significant is that Mr. Lincoln lay in state in this casket for viewing by the American people. To achieve that, embalmers had to be brought in. Embalming at that time was looked upon rather suspiciously as being a strange and mysterious method of dealing with the deceased. However, the fact that they used it so successfully on Mr. Lincoln so that he could be shown across the country as his remains were taken across America to Illinois, where he would be buried, impressed the American people in the value of embalming, and therefore legitimized it to the point where it is now widely used, of course. Secondly, flowers are displayed. Normally, before Mr. Lincoln's time, you didn't see flowers or profuse tributes on caskets or deceased remains because of respect for the deceased and the fact that they did not want to aggrandize or over-glorify a situation of grief. In this case, there were flowers tossed by crowd after crowd at Mr. Lincoln's body as it moved across the country to its final resting place, and therefore flowers became a very significant part of the death protocols, and as they are to this day. So we see a lot of traditional and social change and adaptation to allow Mr. Lincoln to be recognized and to later generations to be given the respect of the dying.
I did notice back there was a wreath, an original wreath.
They used those small wreaths. They, of course, were not real flowers because they would not keep.
Okay.
And therefore, in that day, it was very difficult for flowers to keep because they did not have the refrigeration capabilities that florists have today. So they use artificial wreaths to show respect for Mr. Lincoln, particularly since he was the chief executive. Normally people well below his level would not be given that respect, not that they didn't deserve it, but that they often couldn't afford it. Adornments were expensive. The fact that flowers were fairly reasonable and methods were later achieved to preserve them, they became more and more popular as a sign of respect for the deceased. That's why this adornment is here at this particular time to dramatize the fact that Mr. Lincoln was well recognized by flowers.
And how long was Abraham Lincoln in this casket, in this replica? Well, this is a replica of it, but he was traveling by train.
About 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Wow.
Into the month of May, Mr. Lincoln made the trip up through Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, and then into Indiana and eventually Illinois, where he came to rest. At all those places, there were stops. People viewed him. People mourned him along the way and tried to show their respect for a fallen leader. At the time that this all happened, many other events were cataclysmic. The war had just come to an end. The authorities were chasing the assassin, John Wilkes Booth, and Mr.
How
Stanton
long
and
after the
Mr.
assassination did it take them to catch Wilkes Booth?
That took 3 weeks, well, actually 2 weeks, because the assassination took place on the 14th and he was shot on the 26th, so 12 days, almost 2 weeks.
So he was shot and killed before Lincoln was laid to rest.
Correct.
Yeah,
That is a correct statement.
yeah.
Good reporter statement. And he was in a burning barn, and one of the soldiers probably was overcome by the terrible
Right, the emotion.
grief of
Mhm.
a man burning alive, so he shot him
Wow.
in the neck and
Wow.
broke his spine, and he died 4 hours later.
Mm-hmm.
Booth did, not the soldier.
I noticed in a photograph over there on exhibit that at Lincoln's second inauguration that John Wilkes Booth is there. He's right there.
That
in the
is
photograph.
correct.
How was he invited to this inauguration? How did he get so close to the president?
Well, he wasn't invited, and that's just the way it was done in those days. Anybody who wanted to come to these inaugurations did. The people, of course, very up close to Mr. Lincoln were invitees because of the positioning, and there was a protocol, pecking order of where the Secretary of State would sit, or the Vice President, or the ambassador, or so on. And so someone like Booth could easily attend an inauguration or any other event, or even go to the White House and visit Mr. Lincoln.
Wow.
Walk in the front door.
You could walk right in the way.
Because it was a very transparent society, to use a contemporary term. They
Very
were,
trusting.
trusting, and also they felt the people owned the government, and
Okay.
therefore had every right of access to it.
Oh,
We
wow.
all know
Yeah.
in this day that is
Right.
not safe, and it violates the security thing. So I think that Mr. Lincoln and those protocols are reflections of the time,
Mm-hmm.
and what it led to, and it's so tragic because everyone wonders what would have become
Right.
of the country
Exactly.
afterward had he lived and been a kinder, more healing type president. Although I'm convinced, this is my personal opinion now, that I don't think Mr. Lincoln was that well physically, and that he might not have lived through his second term anyway. It's just from everything I've read and come to understand, I think he may have been stricken with a variety of ailments, and therefore we'll always wonder what turns in history would have taken had he lived.
Now tell me, how long will this replica, the coffin, be here at the Lincoln Shrine?
All right, it was supposed to be here through the 3rd week, actually I think the 26th of April,
Mm-hmm.
which was a propitious day. That's when the Southern armies finally capitulated, the main armies, back in 1865. So the mortuary, Emerson Bartlett, were very kind to extend that loan of this casket to us until, I believe, the 3rd week in May, in order for more of the public to have time to come and see it. So I hope they do.
Yeah, I was just
Very
talking,
historical.
there was a couple here from Washington State.
Yeah, they come from all over.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It
And
is
so you guys, you have till about May, the 3rd week in May?
3rd week in May. I'm not exactly sure of that date. I read it. I
Okay.
can't remember it
Will it be
exactly.
on your website?
It should be.
Okay.
And if people want to know exactly when the terminal point of this display occurs, they can call the Heritage Room,
Okay, the Heritage Room.
which is the umbrella organization that manages this facility.
Okay,
And that Heritage Room telephone number is 909-798-7632.
okay. And you guys, I'll also put a link in the discussion box below so you can go directly to the website. Okay, thank you very much.
You're
I
very
appreciate
welcome.
this. And thank you also.
You're welcome. Thank you
Okay.
for being here.
Thank you. And so you guys, I just want to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. And so I'm just going to take a moment here of silence for respect for our president, President Abraham Lincoln.